Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel, where silence speaks louder than screams. Let's get right into it. She twirled under the string lights like the air itself adored her. I watched her from across the dance floor, holding a half-empty glass of ginger ale, hands trembling slightly, not from the cold, but from something much worse. Mel wasn't just dancing with him. She was beaming, smiling like that was the only moment in her life that had ever mattered. And me? I could have been a chair, a passing waiter, a speck on her dress. It wasn't jealousy that hit me first. It was confusion, like I'd tripped in a dream and woken up in someone else's life. Because this wasn't the woman who had cried last week watching old home videos. This wasn't the woman who asked if I'd hold her hand through dinner with her family because her dad made her nervous. No, this was a stranger in my wife's body, a woman whose eyes hadn't even looked for me once. I didn't cause a scene that would have made me visible, and apparently, that wasn't the role I was meant to play that night. So I did something no one noticed. I slowly took off my wedding ring. Right there, behind the dessert table, between the cheesecake squares and the mini cannolis, and I placed it on top of the folded napkin she left at our table. She always forgot things when she was in the moment. That night, she forgot me. And then I walked out. Not fast, not dramatic. Just one foot, then the other, as if I were walking out of my own skin. No one stopped me. No one called my name. I heard the DJ's voice behind me. All right, this one's for the couples that go way back. I didn't even flinch. I walked past the laughter, past the photo booth, past the valet who offered me a smile and a code I no longer needed. I left everything in that room, including my dignity. At the end of the gravel path was a small bench behind the catering tent. That's where I sat, for maybe an hour, watching steam rise from the kitchen vents and listening to people clink glasses inside a party I no longer belonged to. And that's where she found me. But not before everything changed. Because what happened inside that barn while I was gone? It wasn't just embarrassing. It was unforgivable. She didn't notice I was gone until the power flickered. You know that brief second when the music cuts out and everyone freezes mid-conversation? It happened just as the final chorus of that song hit. Everyone looked up, confused. Then the string lights above dimmed to a dull amber, and the dance floor was bathed in a kind of soft twilight. That's when I heard it, her voice. Melinda's voice. Where's my husband? Not where's Ellis. Not has anyone seen him. Just, where's my husband? Like it was an item she misplaced. Like a clutch or a coat. I watched from the shadows near the back entrance. I hadn't gone far. Just far enough to vanish. I know it sounds pathetic, but I wanted to see if she'd look for me. If she'd care. But what happened instead cut deeper than anything I imagined. Barrett, the man she'd been dancing with, leaned in and said, loud enough for the bartender to hear, he probably couldn't handle the show. Mel giggled, as if that was funny. As if me walking out of the room like a ghost wasn't a red flag, but some sort of punchline. A few people nearby laughed too. I don't think they even realized how cruel it sounded. But she did. I saw her glance down at her hand. Her ring finger was bare. She didn't notice the ring I had placed on her napkin was gone, and that it wasn't coming back. I stepped outside again before she could see me. The cold hit differently that time. Not like weather, like punishment. I stood near the edge of the parking lot where the grass met gravel and leaned against someone's rental car, trying to breathe. That's when the best man found me. He wasn't even a close friend, just someone I'd made small talk with during the ceremony. Hey, he said, cautious, you all right? I didn't answer at first, just nodded like an idiot. But then he said something that shifted everything. You should probably know, Barrett. He's not just some old work friend. They used to be a thing. Real intense. Ended messy. You didn't know? No, I didn't. Mel never mentioned him. Not once. And now she was slow dancing with him under fairy lights like I'd never existed. My stomach turned so violently I had to sit down on the curb. That's when it hit me. She didn't forget to tell me. She chose not to. Back inside, the music had returned. People were laughing again. Dancing. Living. While I was unraveling, she was still out there, pretending we were okay. But the moment she walked outside and saw me sitting in the dark, pale, eyes red, no ring on my finger, she stopped smiling. And for the first time all night, she finally looked like someone who understood what she just lost. She finally walked out into the cold, her heels crunching the gravel like an unwanted apology. Her arms were wrapped tightly around her body, not from the breeze, but from that strange panic people wear when they realize they've lost control of the narrative. I didn't move when I saw her. I just sat there on the curb, staring into the distance like I was waiting for something that already happened. She stopped a few feet away, and for the first time that evening, she hesitated. "Elle, why did you leave?" she asked, voice soft like it hadn't just stabbed me hours earlier. I didn't answer. I didn't even look at her. I just asked, "Who is Barrett?" And I said it flat. No emotion. No heat. Like someone checking the weather. She froze. That was the first honest moment of the night. Her lips parted, and I could see her scrambling to assemble a version of the truth that wouldn't blow back in her face. "He's someone I used to know," she said. "Used to love," I corrected. She didn't deny it. She just sat down beside me slowly, like sitting next to me was going to erase what she did. She reached out and touched my knee, and it took everything in me not to flinch. "It's not like that anymore," she whispered. I didn't think it mattered. There it was. She didn't think it mattered. A man she once loved, intensely, messily, shows up at a wedding we attend together, dances with her like it's prom night, and she doesn't think it's something I should know. She didn't think my comfort, my trust, or my presence mattered. I wanted to explode. I wanted to scream until her perfect mascara ran down her cheeks. But instead, I asked the one thing I wasn't supposed to. "Do you still have feelings for him?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, her purse buzzed. Once. Then again. I glanced at it. So did she. She made no move to check it, which told me everything I needed to know. "You should answer him," I said. Her hand tightened around the strap like it might break if she let go. "It's not him." I didn't believe her. Not for a second. And in that moment, I wasn't her husband. I wasn't even the man she married. I was just another guy holding the pieces of a marriage someone else had dropped. "I need to go," I said quietly. She blinked like I'd just spoken in a language she'd never heard. "Go where?" "Elle, wait, you're overreacting. Don't tell me how to react when you spent the night pretending I wasn't real." She tried to stop me, reaching for my arm, but I stood. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just walked toward the lot, past cars that didn't know my story and strangers who didn't know my name. She called after me, but her voice felt like background noise. Like elevator music in a burning building. That buzzing phone. I found out later what it said, and once I did, I stopped being a husband entirely. I didn't go back to the hotel room. I couldn't. I walked aimlessly through the dim parking lot, past rows of rented SUVs and polished sedans, until I reached a side road that ran behind the venue. My breath fogged in the air, and every few steps I hoped I'd wake up. That this would all dissolve like a bad dream I'd retell later with a laugh. But the cold stung, and the buzzing in my head wouldn't stop. I was awake. Tragically, painfully awake. I ended up sitting at a bus stop a few blocks away, even though no buses were running that late. The bench was cold and metal and uncomfortable, but it was the first place I'd sat all night that didn't lie to me. I didn't realize how long I was there until a group of drunk groomsmen stumbled past laughing, one of them still wearing a boutonniere. They didn't notice me. No one did. I was invisible, just like I had been on that dance floor. Eventually, I went back. Not because I wanted to talk to her, but because my wallet, my ID, everything was still in the room. I half hoped she'd be asleep, so I wouldn't have to see her face, wouldn't have to endure another performance of selective guilt. But when I walked in, she was sitting on the edge of the bed, still dressed, staring at her phone. She jumped up like I'd startled her, like I was the one who had something to explain. "Elle, please. I just came for my stuff." She moved toward me, holding out her phone. "I need you to see this. Just, please. Let me explain." I didn't want to. Every bone in my body told me not to. But I looked anyway. The screen showed a single message preview. I didn't even need to unlock it. "Barrett, you looked amazing tonight. Still can't believe how good we were together." She tried to explain. "He texted after the dance. I didn't respond. I swear." But it didn't matter. The timeline didn't matter. The message didn't matter. What mattered was the way she looked at it, like it still had power. Like a part of her liked it. Maybe not the words, but the memory they came from. I saw it in her eyes, that flicker of hesitation, the part of her that hadn't fully closed the door. "You should have blocked him," I said. "I didn't think." "No, you didn't. That's the problem. You haven't thought about me for a long time." She started crying then. Not the loud sobs of guilt, but the quiet tears of someone who was only just realizing she might have gone too far. I watched them fall, one by one, onto the carpet we didn't pay for, in a hotel we'd leave tomorrow pretending we were still a team. I picked up my jacket and reached for my bag. She grabbed my arm. Don't leave. Please. This didn't mean anything. I was just trying to be polite. You were dancing like he still owned part of you. She let go. I walked out again. Only this time, I had my things. My dignity. My clarity. But even as the door clicked shut behind me, I knew this wasn't over. Because deep down, I still needed to know. Had she planned this? Had this night been her escape route all along? And the answer came the next morning, not from her lips, but from someone I never expected. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the back corner of an all-night diner down the road, sipping black coffee that tasted like burnt cardboard. The fluorescent lights buzzed above me, and the only other customer was an old man who kept muttering to himself while stirring sugar into his tea. I kept checking my phone, not to see if she had called. I knew she had, but to make sure I didn't answer if I got weak. Her name popped up 6 times between 2 o'clock and 4 a.m., but I just let it ring, watching it like a fire alarm I refused to respond to. She had made her choices. I was finally making mine. Morning came with a gray sky and an ache in my chest that hadn't faded. I checked out of the hotel and asked the front desk if they could call a cab to take me back to the venue parking lot where my car still sat. I was planning to grab it and disappear. No note. No final conversation. Just a clean break. Or as clean as betrayal allows. As I stepped out to wait, I heard someone call my name. Elle, wait up. It was Clarissa, one of Melinda's friends, a bridesmaid. We'd met a few times before. She was one of the only people who'd ever been kind to me at those corporate parties Mel always dragged me to. She walked straight up to me, clutching something in her hand, a small white envelope. I frowned, confused, but she didn't wait for questions. She's not going to tell you the truth. So I'm going to. My pulse quickened. What is this? She handed me the envelope and stepped back like she wanted no part in what came next. I shouldn't even be involved. But you deserve to know. I opened it right there, on the curb, my fingers suddenly clumsy and cold. Inside were 2 printed screenshots. No headers. Just messages. But I didn't need context. I knew what I was reading. Barrett. So he doesn't suspect anything? You said you just needed to see me one more time. Melinda. He thinks I'm over it. I just needed a night. One night to feel something again. After that, it's done. I couldn't breathe. Clarissa looked at me like she already regretted giving it to me, but she said, she swore it wouldn't go further than a dance. She promised it was just nostalgia. But I've known her too long. She knew what she was doing. I just nodded, numb. You're a good guy, Ellis. Too good for that. I'm sorry. Then she walked away, and I was left standing in the morning drizzle, holding evidence that my wife had orchestrated the entire evening like a performance, and I was never meant to be the main character. I got in my car and sat there, gripping the steering wheel, staring at those messages. The pain wasn't sharp anymore. It was dull and heavy, like carrying a soaked blanket of memories I couldn't wring dry. And even then, I still asked myself the dumbest question. Could I forgive her? I hated that part of me, the part still clinging to the wreckage, looking for signs of life. But what I didn't know yet was that Melinda hadn't just been texting Barrett. She had someone else helping her keep secrets. And the moment I found out who that person was, it changed everything I thought I knew about our marriage. I didn't drive home. I just drove. I passed exits without reading the signs, took turns I didn't plan, and watched the road blur beneath me like it was erasing everything behind me. The screenshots were still in my jacket pocket, burning against my side like a second betrayal I couldn't peel off. I must have driven for 3 hours before I pulled into a gas station in some nowhere town and parked beneath a rusted-out sign that blinked weakly in the daylight. That's where I finally broke. Not in front of Melinda. Not when she danced with him. Not even when Clarissa handed me proof. No, I broke while sitting in the front seat of my car with my forehead pressed to the steering wheel and my knuckles white around the keys. I let out a sound I didn't recognize. Not a cry, not a scream, just something in between. Something lost. That sound was for every anniversary I planned alone, every work party where I stood in the corner like a stranger, every night she turned away and said she was tired but kept her phone face down on the nightstand. I thought that was the lowest it could go. But life, or maybe Melinda, had one more twist left. When I finally made it home later that evening, the house was quiet. I knew she hadn't beaten me there. She probably assumed I'd cool off, that I'd walk through the door like a scolded puppy too weak to stay mad. But I didn't plan to wait for her. I planned to pack. Take the essentials, leave the rest, vanish with whatever pride I had left. I was halfway through the closet when I heard the front door open. Elle. Her voice sounded hopeful. Light. Like nothing had happened. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. She followed the sound of the hangers rattling and appeared in the doorway like she was walking into a sitcom scene. Can we talk? I turned, held up the envelope Clarissa had given me, and tossed it on the bed. She didn't even look shocked. Just defeated. I was going to tell you, she whispered. No, you weren't, I said. You weren't even going to try. That's when she broke. And when I say broke, I don't mean she cried. She cracked open. Like the mask finally slipped, and I saw her. Not the curated version, not the pretty wife with practiced empathy, but the woman who had been lying to my face for God knows how long. But then she said something I wasn't ready for. You're mad at the wrong person. I blinked. Excuse me. She sat down, rubbed her temples, then muttered. Barrett wasn't the one who reached out first. It was Lindsay. Lindsay, her best friend. The one who always told me I was lucky to have Mel. The one who'd helped plan our engagement party. The one who told Mel to wear that exact dress to the wedding. What does Lindsay have to do with this? She told me Barrett would be there. She said it might be good closure. She said it wouldn't hurt anyone. Closure. That word again. The polite label people slap on infidelity when they want to pretend it's therapy. So your best friend encouraged you to cheat? She said I needed one night of feeling seen. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Not only had Melinda betrayed me, she had help. She had people cheering her on in the background, enabling her, dressing her up for the fall, convincing her she was entitled to it. I thought I'd hit rock bottom. But that's when I realized I wasn't even close. Because when I checked Lindsay's social media that night, I found something Mel never told me. Lindsay wasn't just encouraging her. She had done it too. That night, after she fell asleep on the couch pretending to be the victim, I sat in the dark with my laptop open, my phone charging, and my mind racing. I wasn't looking for more pain. I already had enough. I just needed clarity, something concrete to make sense of the emotional train wreck that had become my marriage. I opened Instagram. I hadn't used it in months, but Lindsay's profile was public, and part of me wanted to understand how deep her involvement really went. That curiosity turned into a stomach punch when I saw the second photo in her story. It was from 2 weeks ago, a rooftop bar, dim lighting, soft jazz in the background. But it wasn't the scenery that mattered. It was the people in the booth behind her. In the corner of the frame, slightly blurred but unmistakable, was Melinda. And across from her, smiling like he had already won, was Barrett. 2 weeks ago. Before the wedding. Before the dance. Before this spur-of-the-moment mistake. I felt my body go cold. She had lied not just about what happened, but when. This wasn't an accident. This was rehearsed. The dress. The timing. The music. Even her ringless finger. All of it was scripted. That wedding wasn't just an opportunity. It was the finale. I scrolled down Lindsay's feed, now frantic. That's when I found the real bomb. A tagged photo from over a year ago. Melinda and Lindsay, both smiling at a house party, with a man's arm around each of them. Only, the man beside Lindsay wasn't her fiancé. It was Marcus, my former coworker. A guy who mysteriously left his job after some HR drama no one ever explained. I clicked through his page. It didn't take long. 2 posts. A year apart. Both of them showing Lindsay. Both posted on days she told her fiancé she was with Mel catching up. That's when it clicked. They weren't just best friends. They were each other's alibis. All this time, I thought Melinda had cracked under emotional distance, stress, maybe a fading marriage. But this wasn't some slow unraveling. This was a pattern. A pact. They covered for each other. One affair bought the other silence. They weren't falling, they were planning. I looked over at Melinda, still sleeping on the couch with her arms tucked under her head like she was innocent. That same face used to make me feel safe. Now it made my skin crawl. I didn't wake her. I didn't scream. I just stood in the doorway for a while, watching her chest rise and fall as if nothing had changed. But everything had, and I knew what I needed to do. I packed the rest of my things. I wrote a note. Not to beg. Not to argue. Just a sentence. If you wanted to live a double life, you should have picked a man who only wanted half of you. Then I left the house, drove to my brother's, and crashed on his couch without saying a word. The only thing I kept from my marriage was the screenshots. A reminder. But I wasn't gone for good. Not yet. Because the final chapter? That came 1 week later, when she tried to win me back in the most humiliating way imaginable. It happened exactly 8 days after I walked out. I had just started settling into my brother's guest room, sleeping under a lopsided poster of a 90s basketball team and eating cereal out of coffee mugs because he didn't own real bowls. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't comfortable. But it was honest. It was the first time in years I felt like I could breathe without having to measure the size of my inhale. That morning, I got a knock at the door. I opened it, and there she was. Melinda, standing in the doorway with her hair tied back, no makeup, holding a small paper bag and a photo album. She looked smaller than usual, like someone who had been living in rewind for days and still didn't know how to press play again. "Elle," she said, her voice cracked. "I know I don't deserve to be here, but I needed to see you. Just for 5 minutes." I didn't invite her in. I didn't offer to talk. But I stepped outside and sat with her on the front steps. She handed me the bag. Inside was my old watch, the one I thought I'd lost 2 years ago, now cleaned and ticking. She said she found it in the back of her jewelry drawer and realized I probably hadn't even noticed it was missing because I was too busy not being seen. Then she handed me the photo album. It was filled with photos I didn't remember we even took. Me fixing the sink, us painting the guest room, her laughing in the kitchen while I burned pancakes. She'd written little captions beneath each one. Things like, "He tried his best," or, "I never deserved this man." And then at the very end, on the last page, was a note she taped in. "I broke us. You didn't. I lied to you. You never lied to me. If I have to spend the rest of my life proving I understand what I lost, then that's what I'll do. But if you've already closed the door, I will never knock again." She didn't cry. She didn't plead. She just stood up and walked away, leaving the album and the watch beside me. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel rage. I didn't feel hurt. I felt peace. Because in that moment, I realized something simple and powerful. I didn't need her regret to move forward. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need closure wrapped in drama. I needed freedom. And I had it. I started therapy the next week. I reconnected with my sister in Vermont, who I hadn't seen in years. I picked up my old camera and started taking photos again. I wasn't just healing, I was living. As for Melinda, she never knocked again. And that was her final gift to me.